This production, developed by PLAC with support from the United States Agency for International Development through Palladium, explores the multifaceted world of CSOs in Nigeria, shedding light on their remarkable advocacy efforts, the challenges faced, and the impact they continue to make in building a more inclusive and just society for all Nigerians. It is a testament to the dedication, resilience, and unwavering commitment of CSOs and their advocates who work tirelessly to create a better Nigeria for the present and future generations. Civil society organizations, CSOs, have played a significant role in Nigeria's history, particularly in advocating for social justice, human rights, and democratic governance. The birth and evolution of CSOs in Nigeria can be traced through several key historical phases. Nigeria, we hail thee. During Nigeria's colonial period, civil society was primarily shaped by the struggle of independence from British colonial rule. Early CSOs focused on nationalist movements and political activism against colonial oppression. Following independence in 1960, Nigeria saw the emergence of various civil society groups, including trade unions, student associations, and professional bodies. These organizations were instrumental in advocating for labor rights, educational reform, and improved social services. The period of military rule in Nigeria witnessed significant activism and the birth of CSOs dedicated to democracy and human rights. Groups like the Campaign for Democracy, CD, the Civil Liberties Organization, CLO, and the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, played vital roles in resisting military dictatorship and advocating for democratic governance. However, this era, which spanned several decades at different points in the nation's history, was indeed a challenging and repressive period for activists and civil society organizations. During this regime, activists faced significant obstacles and risks in their efforts to advocate for democracy, human rights, and social justice. Some of the difficulties and challenges activists encountered during the military era included suppression of free speech, restriction on civil society, arbitrary arrests and detentions, torture and human rights abuses, restrictions on public protests, exile and forced disappearances, media censorship, and funding limitations. Despite these challenges, many activists in Nigeria demonstrated incredible resilience and determination. They continued to advocate for democracy, human rights, and social justice, often at great personal risk.
As your president to head a democratic civilian administration.
Under the military, what people essentially knew they were doing was that they were fighting for the military to go. They want civil rule to return. So even when organizations like the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights was being formed, I was a foundation member. It started when a trade unionist, a labor activist, Mr. Femi Aborishade, was detained by the military because the military government that time had dissolved the Nigerian Labour Congress, and he was editing a socialist newspaper called Labour Militant that wrote an editorial criticizing the military. And just because of that, they picked him up and was held in detention for almost 1 year.
In the 21st century, CSOs in Nigeria have expanded their focus to address various socio-economic and environmental issues. These organizations advocate for healthcare access, education, gender equality, environmental protection, and poverty alleviation. The rise of the internet and social media platforms has enabled CSOs in Nigeria to mobilize public support, raise awareness, and amplify their advocacy efforts. Online activism and advocacy campaigns have become increasingly prominent. Nigerian CSOs have faced challenges including government crackdowns, funding limitations, and security threats in some regions. However, they have demonstrated resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity.
As a group of young professionals,
Today, Nigeria boasts of a vibrant and diverse civil society landscape comprising hundreds of CSOs, NGOs, and community-based organizations working on a wide range of issues. A CSO, or civil society organization, is a non-governmental and non-profit organization formed by individuals or groups of citizens to address specific social, political, economic, or environmental issues and promote the well-being of society. CSOs are distinct from government entities and for-profit businesses and typically operate independently from these sectors. CSOs are usually non-profit entities, meaning they do not distribute their earnings to shareholders. CSOs are formed with a specific mission or purpose in mind. This mission often revolves around advocacy, service provision, research, or community development. Many CSOs engage in advocacy and activism to promote policy changes, raise awareness, and influence decision makers on various issues, including human rights, environmental conservation, healthcare, education, and social justice. CSOs can address a wide range of issues, including poverty alleviation, gender equality, human rights, education, healthcare, environmental protection, and more. The areas of focus depend on their missions and the needs they aim to address. CSOs are independent of government control, although they often collaborate with government agencies, international organizations, and other stakeholders to achieve their goals. Many CSOs work directly with communities and grassroots organizations to understand and address local needs and issues. Examples of CSOs include non-governmental organizations, NGOs, community-based organizations, CBOs, foundations, advocacy groups, labor unions, and professional associations. The story of CSOs in Nigeria is one of hope, resilience, and determination. A story that reminds us that positive change is possible when individuals and organizations come together in the pursuit of a common vision. It is a story that continues to inspire and will undoubtedly shape the nation's path forward.
no retreat, no surrender.
The collection of short stories explores the integral role some CSOs have played in addressing the nation's challenges, fostering social cohesion, and impacting the nation-building process. Gender inequality has remained a pervasive issue in Nigeria, limiting women's access to education, economic opportunities, health care, and political representation.
Anybody committed to change must place at the center of their agenda the question of gender equality and the liberation of women, if they are really committed to change.
With specific emphasis on women's empowerment and participation in all aspects of society, CSOs have led and advocated for several initiatives to challenge discriminatory practices, remove barriers that hinder women's full participation, and advance policies and practices that promote gender inclusion and equality. Some key areas of CSO advocacy aimed at breaking down gender-based barriers and promoting an equitable society include economic empowerment, political participation and representation, health care and reproductive rights, ending gender violence, legal and policy reforms, workplace inclusion and diversity, and cultural and social reforms. On the vibrant campus of Nigeria's tertiary institutions, where knowledge thrives, a dark shadow lingers in the corridors of learning, where dreams are forged and young minds blossom. There exists a pressing concern that has shattered trust, dignity, and equality, which is the pervasive presence of sexual harassment lurking beneath the surface of our society. But out of the shadows emerge the voices of the brave students, educators, and advocates who are uniting to combat this insidious problem. In Nigeria, sexual harassment is the bane of many students. While it is difficult to put a figure to it, a 2018 World Bank survey revealed that 70% of female graduates from Nigerian tertiary institutions had been sexually harassed in school by their fellow students and lecturers. To address this problem, Stand to End Rape, STAR, has been at the forefront of addressing the issues of sexual violence in Nigeria. STAR is a non-governmental organization that focuses on advocacy, support, and education to combat sexual violence and promotes gender equality. In 2018, STAR partnered with the BBC Africa Eye team to conduct an investigative expose on sexual harassment in academic institutions, which led to the reintroduction of the Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Institution Prohibition Bill by the Nigerian Senate of the Ninth Assembly, after a failed attempt in 2016 to pass a watered-down version.
I stand humbly to present this lead debate for the second reading of the Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Educational Institutions Prohibition Bill 2016 SB 262. For far too long, sexual predators masquerading as educators have plied the corridors of our nation's higher institutions unchecked. Mr. President, this 8th Senate is by this bill sending a very strong message that enough is enough.
Although the bill has made significant progress in the Nigerian legislature, the decision to assent to the bill remains the fate of this piece of legislation. CSOs, advocates, legal experts, and interest groups continue the arduous journey and unyielding fight for the passage of this legislation into law that not only penalizes perpetrators, but empowers survivors with support, resources, and a voice.
Second order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to create additional special seats for women in the federal and state legislative houses and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Nkiruka Onyejucha and 85 other honorable members. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 22nd April 2021. And I invite Honorable Onyejucha to move that the bill be now read a second time.
I move that a bill for an act to alter provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to create additional special seats for women in the federal and state legislative houses and for related matters HB 1301.
of the greatest Nigerian women.
Let them come and tell us whether in all the public hearing that they went to, whether they didn't find more women. We have evidence to show. For our courts in Lagos, there are more women in the house. So it is a decision that they need to make. And they better make that decision for the benefit of, or else the women will take over this country.
2023 may be a tough one because if you don't have a party yet, or if you don't move quickly and the political parties are not moving, especially the major political parties, they are not moving to put women in the respective positions. If they are not, there is so much that we can get in 2023. But I can tell you, the next election of 2027, oh boy, there will be many women governors. We will look forward to capturing the presidency unless we don't have qualified woman that comes out. Whoever woman comes out as a presidential candidate, we will vote them.
As a result of that, we decided that our advocacy should shift a little bit towards ensuring that more women are given visibility and that more women get into politics, more women get into governance. And we needed a strong platform to do that. And that's brought in the 100 Women Lobby Group.
CSO's effective advocacy efforts have contributed significantly to addressing the cultural and societal barriers that hinder the full participation and empowerment of women through education, awareness, policy advocacy, and community engagement. The goal for the CSOs is to build a safe society where every woman's voice is heard, valued, and empowered. Civil society organizations, CSOs in Nigeria, have been actively involved in advocacy efforts related to health to address various challenges and improve healthcare access, quality and equity in the country.
On the 7th of November, we, the community health practitioners of this country, witnessed, like all other citizens, the presentation of the 2018 appropriation bill, which was laid by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the floor in the joint session of the National Assembly. After last year's experience of budget delay, we commend government for this early budget. But there is a bigger problem. This problem is that the 2018 health budget, as a proportion of the total national budget, is only 3.9%.
Some of the key advocacy areas and initiatives undertaken by CSOs in the realm of health in Nigeria include universal health coverage, maternal and child health, nutrition and malnutrition, infectious disease, mental health, health system accountability, emergency response and pandemic preparedness, access to medicines, and primary health care strengthening. In addition, Nigeria has several policy documents that allude to quality, effective, efficient, equitable, accessible, affordable, acceptable, and comprehensive healthcare services for all Nigerians.
What we want to do is to bring health to the doorstep of our people. And the only way to do that is to deliver health through a network of functional PHCs.
Yet, Nigeria still ranks very low on the World Bank's Human Capital Index 2020. According to almost all health metrics, Nigeria's health outcomes are dismal, with inadequate progress made over the past 2 decades for the majority of its population. As of 2018, the share of government spending assigned to healthcare was only 5.2%, according to Lancet Commission. A report by the non-profits of the Partnership for Advocacy in Child and Family Health at Scale analyzed the budgets of the Federal Ministry of Health and its agencies between 2001 and 2021. Its findings show that Nigeria neglected to follow through on its promise, oftentimes barely reaching a third of the pledged target.
Many countries continue to consider health as a luxury or as a consumption good. It's something that is costing the government money, whereas it should have been taken like an enabling factor for economic and socio-economic development.
In a world where quality healthcare is a fundamental right, millions of Nigerians, especially across vulnerable communities, still struggle to access the care they need. But in this struggle, there are unsung heroes, civil society organizations leading the way.
No woman should have to die while giving life.
Using the example of the efforts of Nigeria Health Watch, a non-governmental organization working on providing relief and development assistance to underserved communities in the areas of healthcare.
Every life counts as we go extra mile to ensure that no patient died due to lack of financial means.
According to a survey carried out by the Nigeria Health Watch, 19% of maternal deaths globally occur in Nigeria. One Nigerian woman dies every 13 minutes. That is 109 women dying every day from preventable causes related to pregnancy and childbirth. These are only recorded deaths. Nigeria is yet to have a system that allows it to record maternal deaths that happen in the communities where women do not go to a health facility to give birth. Aware of these worrying figures, the Nigeria Health Watch launched a program across 6 states in Nigeria, one per geopolitical zone, to gather evidence on the prevailing factors responsible for maternal mortality in rural communities across Nigeria.
The Nigeria Health Watch team was in Ebonyi State recently to learn how one primary healthcare center is helping change this narrative of the community of Odenibo in Ikwo local government.
Ebonyi State was a state selected in the southeast with Odenibo community as the beneficiary community. A study to determine the causes, trends, and high level of maternal mortality rate revealed that hemorrhage was the most common cause of maternal death in the community, accounting for 23%, given the distance of the community from Abakaliki, the state capital. With a commitment to build the maternal health ecosystem by extending primary healthcare services to remote areas, with a particular focus on safe motherhood, maternal and new health, Nigeria Health Watch, in collaboration with the Ebonyi State government and support from Ananda Marga Universal Relief Team, a private international voluntary organization founded in India, partnered with the primary health facilities in Ebonyi State to operate comprehensive maternal and child care centers. Nigeria Health Watch model of community-based collaborative healthcare proved effective, with over 1,965 successful births taking place in the supported health centers.
In Ebonyi State, we are currently in 5 local governments: Abakaliki local government, Oahupu local government, Ebonyi local government, Ikwu local government, and Onitsha local government.
In Ofia-Oji alone, another community in Ebonyi State, 85% of the women come to the health center for delivery. This is remarkable, given the majority of women were given birth at home or with a traditional birth attendant. In pursuit of Nigeria's commitment to advancing nutrition through a multi-sectoral approach, the Federal Executive Council on the 3rd of March 2022 approved the 2021 to 2026 National Gender Policy. Although the policy commits Nigeria to a bolder and more ambitious vision for gender equality and the empowerment of all children, adolescents, and women, there exist gaps in these policies, particularly in addressing the nutritional needs of non-pregnant, non-lactating women and adolescent girls. To address this gap, the civil society scaling up nutrition in Nigeria, CSOs, has taken a proactive role in collaborating with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs to develop and adopt a national guideline on women and girls' nutrition empowerment for optimal development.
What we do majorly is because we are concerned even about that particular child and also at the mother, and most of the times also for the father. So we go through probably to the government and we keep on talking and talking. Most times we organize several programs that probably that brings in or the government probably on decks. We talk to them, we educate them probably on what stunting, wasting, underweight, breastfeeding is, and so that if they are already built into what it is, or they will find it in their own place to put it in their own budget. While we talk about budgets too, we try to advocate to the government to, for the very, very first time, create a budget line for nutrition, and which most states in Nigeria now, most especially in Lagos State now, already have a budget line for nutrition where they can start talking about this is the amount that is going for nutrition. And so when they are doing that, that gives us probably another kind of solace. So while we have that also, we are now already in another space again where we now do budget monitoring. So we now monitor all these particular funds that they say that is already into the budget line for nutrition. So in doing all this, we are in that space where we advocate for nutrition. We are in that space where we tell them what to do probably for nutrition. And we are also in that space to now monitor what they are doing for nutrition. So we are trying to see everything all encompassing, that we see that everything that talks about health and nutrition is taken into cognizance.
Over the years, CSOs held programs, initiatives, and strategies have been instrumental in reforming policies to meet the needs of disadvantaged and vulnerable populations. They have continued to collaborate with government agencies, international organizations, healthcare providers, and local communities to advance their advocacy goals in the healthcare sector, which have contributed to shaping health policies, improving healthcare infrastructure, and ultimately enhancing the health and well-being of Nigerians. The prevalence of disability in Nigeria, like in many other countries, can be challenging to precisely determine due to various factors, including differences in definitions, data collection methods, and the diversity of disabilities. However, based on available data, the prevalence of disability in Nigeria is estimated to be relatively high. The 2006 census, the 2012 Nigeria General Household Survey, and the 2018 National Demographic and Health Survey all reported disability prevalence rate of approximately 2%. However, many experts suggest this is an underestimation of the actual population of persons with disabilities.
15% of the Nigerian population, of the world population, they are living with different forms of disability. And Nigeria has the highest number of persons with disability. We are 31 million in number. And if you look at this 31 million, we have what we call a kind of equity challenges in terms of inclusion.
The World Health Organization estimates that there are approximately 25 million persons with disabilities in Nigeria. This corresponds to 13.2% of the population, which would be closer to the global estimates that typically 15% of the population live with disabilities. It is further estimated that nearly 40% of the people with disabilities in Nigeria have multiple impairments, and approximately 9 out of 10 people with disabilities in Nigeria live below poverty line.
You can't separate disability with poverty. Because most of those of us that have visual impairment are from poor homes. Had it been our parents were well-to-do, maybe we would have gone to better hospitals for better treatment and we wouldn't have been blind.
Persons with disabilities constitute a significant and diverse segment of society. However, they often encounter various forms of discrimination, exclusion, and limited access to essential services, education, employment, and public spaces. To this end, CSOs in Nigeria have carried out comprehensive advocacy campaigns focused on addressing the challenges faced by PWDs and promoting their full inclusion in all aspects of society. Some key areas of advocacy targeted at the inclusion of PWDs include accessibility, social protection and welfare, political participation, and social inclusion.
A lot of times we see accessibility from the point of ramp. There is more to accessibility than ramp.
The journey of the Disability Act in Nigeria is a testament to the advocacy and collective efforts of various stakeholders in promoting the rights and inclusion of persons with disabilities. For many years, persons with disabilities in Nigeria faced discrimination, lack of access to basic services, and limited opportunities for education and employment.
We conducted research about a year ago, right, to understand what kind of challenges that people with disability face in the workplace. And it was bad. Many of them say they're union members, but they feel like they don't get the same treatment like somebody who doesn't have a disability.
Civil society organizations, CSOs, disability rights advocates, and persons with disabilities themselves began to raise awareness about the challenges they faced and the need for legal protections. International frameworks such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities provided guidance and impetus for legislative action.
The billion-plus persons with disabilities around the world are an integral part of every society on the planet. Virtually everything we do in development has the potential to affect their lives.
Disability rights advocates and CSOs started to mobilize and advocate for the passage of a comprehensive disability rights law.
Pursuant of our mandate of holding stakeholders to account for the implementation of the Act, CCD early this year organized a one-year anniversary to commemorate the passage of the Disability Act. One of the key demands we made during the anniversary was the need to establish the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
They organized protests and public awareness campaigns and engaged with lawmakers to highlight the need for legal protections against discrimination.
We will do everything possible within the stipulated time you have given to ensure that Mr. President has a copy of this bill.
Efforts to draft a disability rights bill began with input from disability advocates and experts. The bill was introduced in the Nigerian legislature in the year 2000, and it underwent a series of revisions to ensure its alignment with international standards and the specific needs of Nigerians with disabilities.
The urgent need for specific recognition of persons with disabilities in poverty alleviation programs.
We have come together with a coalition of other civil society organizations to come and say what is happening with our disability bill. There is no reason why after so many years in this country, Nigeria does not have a law that protects its citizens with disabilities.
We've also commenced the amendment of the National Building Code to make it in synchronym with the provisions of the Disability Act so that it's easy for persons with disability to access public buildings.
The bill faced debates and challenges in the legislative process as some lawmakers raised concerns about implementation and resource allocation, but CSOs and interest groups continue to engage in dialogues and negotiations to address these concerns and build consensus. After 18 years of deliberations, revisions, and engagement with the federal government and the National Assembly, the Disability Act was passed by the Nigerian legislature and transmitted to the President for assent in December 2018. On January 17, 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the act into law, officially making it the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018.
Nigeria is a signatory and a state party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which seeks to promote the inclusion of persons with special needs in all development efforts globally. Under my leadership, government shall continue to give effect to all global, regional, and sub-regional treaties that seek to improve the lives of our disadvantaged citizens.
The focus has shifted to the implementation of the Act, as government agencies, CSOs, and disability rights advocates are working to ensure its effective enforcement. A National Commission for Persons with Disabilities was established to oversee implementation and monitor progress. Another multifaceted initiative led by CSOs on disabilities is advocacy for the rights, dignity, and equal participation of women with disabilities. The WHO estimates that more women have a disability globally than men, that is, 19.2% of women compared to 12% of men, due to a combination of exclusion from education and health care, poor nutrition, and violence against women and girls. Leonard Cheshire, an international organization that focuses on disability issues and works to improve the lives of people with disabilities around the world, reports that in Nigeria, persons with disabilities are underrepresented in the labor market, with women with disabilities frequently experiencing the combined disadvantages associated with gender as well as disability. Leonard Cheshire in 2018 estimates the unemployment rate of persons with disabilities, that is 15 to 24 years, to be 77%, compared to 49% amongst persons without disabilities. Moreover, those who are in work face further obstacles to progression. Only 0.9% of managerial positions are filled by people with disabilities. Of these, 100% were men. According to Leonard Cheshire, persons with disabilities also have lower access to financial services, a main obstacle to entrepreneurship. Only 12% of persons with disabilities are estimated to have a bank account, compared to 16% of persons without disability. And while 19% of men with disabilities have access to banking, the proportion of women with disabilities having a bank account stands at a mere 4%. Advocacy for Women with Disabilities Initiative, which was co-founded in 2008, advocates for the rights of women and girls with disabilities for their inclusion in all national policies, programs, and activities. AWWDI, a national program with over 50 community self-help groups across the country, focuses on activities that lead to the advancement of women and girls with disabilities and other marginalized groups. In September 2023, AWWDI, in collaboration with the Ekiti State Government, appointed the Ekiti State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Filane Oyebaji, as an ambassador for women with disabilities on sexual and reproductive health rights. This significant advocacy strategy aims to promote and address one of the unique challenges and experiences of women with disabilities.
Our main purpose is to create an enabling environment for women with disability in Nigeria. And we operated using a self-help group model where it's structured, because we know that we cannot be everywhere. So we structure using a self-help group model, creating self-help groups within states and communities. So mostly our job is community-based. We work within a community, rural area, and then far to reach communities to ensure that women and girls with disability living within those areas are reached, and then intervention is being given to them.
It is worth noting that CSOs in Nigeria have made significant contributions to advancing the rights and inclusion of persons with disabilities. Their work is ongoing, and they continue to play a vital role in ensuring that the rights of persons with disabilities are upheld in the country. In every corner of the world, there exists a dedicated group of individuals and organizations who have taken on the mantle of advocates for quality education. Their mission is simple yet profound: to champion the cause of education for all and to ensure that every child, regardless of where they come from, can access a quality education. The Civil Society Action Coalition on Education for All, SACEFA, is a coalition of civil society organizations in Nigeria dedicated to promoting education for all and advocating for the improvement of the education sector in the country. SACEFA plays a vital role in influencing education policies, monitoring government commitments, and ensuring that quality education is accessible to all citizens. The work of SACEFA aligns with the global commitment to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4, which emphasizes the importance of inclusive and equitable quality education for all. By advocating for education for all and actively engaging with stakeholders, Civil Society Action Coalition on Education for All, SACEFA contributes significantly to the advancement of education in Nigeria, ensuring that children and youth have access to the educational opportunities they need for a brighter future. In their unwavering dedication to quality education, CSOs remind us that education is not a privilege, but a fundamental right. Their collective efforts are a testament to the belief that by improving education, we can change the course of lives, communities, and nations. In this shared endeavor, CSOs continue to envision a world where quality education is not just a dream, but a reality for every child. Nigeria recognized the need to address youth-related issues early on. Initiatives and policies aimed at youth development were put in place in the 1970s and 1980s. In 1973, the National Youth Service Corps program was launched to promote national unity and expose young graduates of tertiary institutions to leadership roles and community development. The first attempt to introduce a national youth policy was in 1981. In 1986, the federal government of Nigeria established the National Directorate of Employment (NDE) as part of efforts to combat rising unemployment and underemployment, particularly among Nigeria's youth. The most significant focus of the NDE is youth empowerment. In 1989, Nigeria formulated its first national youth policy aimed at youth development. Regrettably, by the early 1990s, this policy began to suffer tremendous neglect and setback. This created a huge gap in youth development in Nigeria. However, in 2001, a significant milestone was achieved. The adoption of a national youth policy laid the groundwork for addressing various aspects of national youth development. In 2007, the Ministry of Youth Development was established to implement policies and programs to address the various challenges faced by young people, such as education, unemployment, skills development, and employment. Over the years, the policy was reviewed and revised to adapt to changing circumstances and challenges. The first revision of the National Youth Policy occurred in 2009, when an attempt was made to align the policy with the global youth development agenda. The age range used for defining youth in Nigeria was between 18 and 35 years. The most recent version of the National Youth Policy was developed in 2009. This revision aimed to address emerging issues affecting youth, particularly in the areas of entrepreneurship, technology, and participation in governance. At the forefront of these advocacies is Youth Hub Africa, a non-profit, youth-focused organization dedicated to empowering and advocating for implementation of policies that contribute to youth development and youth participation in civic space. Under the National Youth Policy Review Project in 2017, Youth Hub Africa presented its recommendations from the review exercises carried out across the 6 geopolitical zones to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. The ministry expressed its commitment to address the issues outlined.
If we want to redirect our resources at the most critical factor is to see how we can build systems. And we have brilliant people in this country. If you put them in a room, they work it out.
On May 24, 2019, the federal government launched the revised 2019-2023 National Youth Policy.
The truth the youth needs to know is that it's time for you to take the baton.
Another youth-focused organization is the YAGA, Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, a non-profit organization primarily focused on promoting youth and civic engagement, advocacy, and good governance.
Today we have more young people that are elected into elective offices than we had in 2019 and than we even had in 2015 elections. And this is because there's a legal framework that provides the basis and does not disqualify young people from participation, and it provides some level of inclusion.
YAGA continues to play a significant role in advocating for democratic governance and youth empowerment. This is a story of a transformative advocacy campaign that aimed to empower and elevate the voices of young people by advocating for reforms, amplifying their voices, and advocating for policies and practices that promote meaningful youth engagement can only be sustained through continuous engagement with policymakers, strategic advocacy for their rights and interests.
So this is what we try to do, making sure that we look at local community projects, ensuring the citizens themselves talk to their legislators, connecting them to people who are supposed to represent them, and enforcing it and ensuring the government deliver this project on time to them.
The way in which budget is using technology to tell the story of change in this country, to ensure that there's a greater awareness of what needs to change and to draw in people again is a very powerful thing that they have done.
The work of civil society, of non-governmental organizations like Budget is absolutely critical to helping us support the government and actually make progress on our basic mission of eliminating poverty.
In the end, the Nigerian youth story is one of unwavering perseverance and determination. They are rewriting the narrative of their nation, embracing their cultural diversity, and harnessing their collective potential to create a brighter, more prosperous future. Despite the obstacles they face, Nigerian youth continue to stand as a beacon of hope, embodying the spirit of change and progress in their beloved country. Civil society organizations in Nigeria have a long and impactful history of advocacy efforts in the field of human rights. These organizations play a critical role in holding the government accountable, promoting transparency, and defending the rights of Nigerian citizens. Some key areas of human rights advocacy by CSOs in Nigeria include freedom of expression and press freedom, accountability and anti-corruption, police brutality and extrajudicial killings, women's rights and gender violence, socio-economic rights, and freedom of assembly and association. CSOs in Nigeria employ a variety of strategies, including public awareness campaigns, litigation, policy advocacy, and community engagement to advance human rights causes. Their work has been instrumental in raising awareness, effecting legal and policy changes, and promoting a culture of respect for human rights in Nigeria.
Clean Foundation is a non-governmental organization established in January 1998 with the mission of promoting public safety, security, and accessible justice.
Their work has been instrumental in raising awareness, effecting legal and policy changes, and promoting a culture of respect for human rights in Nigeria.
One of the ways in which we engage the government is by drafting a human rights agenda.
If Amnesty is talking about the issue of we violating human rights of citizens, find out what is the intention.
Some of the key issues that we draw attention to are, number one, freedom of expression, conflicts, and we also pay attention to the issue of the Niger Delta, where for almost 6 decades, the people of the oil-producing areas have been living in a very squalid condition with their environment polluted by oil companies without any accountability.
Despite Nigeria being under democratic rule, there is an evident and indisputable cases of systemic rights violations.
The persons who are most responsible for the protection of human rights, indeed, not necessarily the Human Rights Commission, but the police.
In furtherance to the public safety and security initiatives of Clean Foundation, and with support from the Open Society Foundations, we are implementing a project targeted at improving security sector accountability and human rights compliance in countering violent extremism in Nigeria.
The history of elections in Nigeria has been marked by periods of civil rule, military intervention, and transitions between the two. It has been quite a complex and turbulent journey since gaining independence in 1960. Nigeria held its first general elections in 1959, leading to independence from British colonial rule in 1960.
Last Saturday, the country which I have the honor to represent, the Federation of Nigeria, and the responsibilities of a sovereign state.
These early elections marked the beginning of Nigeria's democratic experiment. However, the First Republic was marred by political tensions, which eventually culminated in a military coup in 1966. After a series of military coups, Nigeria experienced a period of military rule for most of the late 1960s and 1970s. In 1983, another military coup led by General Muhammadu Buhari removed the civilian government. After many years of military rule and a transitional period in the 1990s, Nigeria held general elections in 1999, marking a return to democratic civilian rule.
This moment is of great significance in the political history of our dear country, Nigeria.
Olusegun Obasanjo was elected as the president, and this era is often referred to as the Fourth Republic. Nigeria has continued to hold general elections with varying degrees of credibility and challenges. However, these elections have played a crucial role in the consolidation of democracy in the country. While Nigeria has made progress in improving its electoral processes and democratic institutions, challenges such as voter education, electoral violence, and political corruption continue to be areas of concern that require ongoing attention and reform efforts.
The Church has put measures and structures in place to ensure free, fair, and credible elections.
The journey of the Electoral Act in Nigeria has been closely intertwined with the involvement and advocacy of civil society organizations. CSOs in Nigeria have played a significant role in advocating for electoral reforms, monitoring the conduct of elections, and engaging with lawmakers to influence the content of the Electoral Act. Prior to the passage of the 2006 Electoral Act, CSOs in Nigeria had been advocating for comprehensive electoral reforms to address various issues in the electoral system, including electoral violence, voter disenfranchisement, and vote rigging. They were actively engaged in the legislative process that led to the passage of the 2006 Electoral Act. CSOs provided input and recommendations to lawmakers to ensure that the Act reflected the aspirations of civil society for a more transparent and credible electoral process. Following the passage of the 2006 Act, CSOs continued to engage with lawmakers and the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to push for amendments and revisions that would address emerging challenges. On the 20th of August 2010, President Goodluck Jonathan signed the Electoral Act 2010 into law. Further amendments were made to the Act in 2011 and 2015. Despite these amendments, elections in Nigeria were still faced with challenges and controversies, and CSOs remained actively engaged in monitoring the implementation of electoral reforms and continued to advocate fairness, transparency, and accountability in Nigeria's electoral processes. During the 2018 and 2020 amendment efforts of the National Assembly, CSOs presented comprehensive reports and evidence to the legislature. Their mission to secure the passage and assent of an amendment bill that would reshape Nigeria's electoral landscape. The collective efforts of CSOs were not in vain. The bill to repeal and reenact the Electoral Act 2010 as amended received presidential assent in February 2022, marking a significant milestone in the fight for free, fair, and credible elections.
The Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2022, passed by the National Assembly, forwarded for presidential assent via a letter dated 31st January 2022.
A coalition of advocacy groups that have contributed to enhancing Nigeria's electoral environment is the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room.
Situation Room notes with profound sadness.
The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room is a coalition of civil society organizations in Nigeria that focuses on election observation, monitoring, and advocacy. This platform was established to provide an organized and coordinated response to election-related issues and developments in Nigeria. The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room has played and continues to play a significant role in promoting transparent, credible, and accountable electoral process in the country. One key aspect of its work focuses on advocacy for electoral reforms.
Situation Room strongly condemns the killings and acts of election violence and urges authorities to stem further violence.
The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room has been instrumental in improving integrity of Nigeria's electoral processes and promoting the importance of free and fair elections in the country. Its advocacy for electoral reforms and improvement is based solely on its findings and recommendations from election observation exercises. The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room collaborates with government agencies, political parties, security agencies, and international organizations to ensure that elections are conducted in a transparent and accountable manner.
The smart card reader must be compulsorily utilized in the elections, and in the absence of the use, 0 votes must be recorded.
Civil society groups, which ACE is part of, from the year 2006 to today, have done a lot of work. And when you want to talk about ACE and the leadership, so the leadership comes from those who struggle for democracy, like Plaque, who understand the issues, who know the pains that we went through under military rule. And when military rule departed, so they now saw that there's no need to be going to protest or that. What we need is to engage the reform of NEGU framework for INEC, for how government does its business.
The involvement of CSOs in the journey of the Electoral Act has been crucial in pushing for electoral reforms, enhancing transparency, and ensuring that elections in Nigeria are conducted in a credible and accountable manner. Their efforts serve as a check on the government and electoral authorities, helping to safeguard the democratic process and protect the civic rights of Nigerian citizens.
Without an effective civil society activity operations in any country, you find out that nation building is somewhat slower than it should be. The impact is immense. In fact, I can't thank the various civil society organizations enough, because there are the extent to which the government per se can reach, and you find that they cover these gaps. So we really need to continue encouraging them, making it easier for them to operate, because we need them so much. I know very inland communities, where the government presence is so absent, and you find out that the civil society put the school there, they put the pipe on water there, they even put the people running whatever, they put the teachers, they pay them, house them. So bring in education, bring in good water, pipe on water, improving the health of the people, healthcare. You find out that there's no government presence there, but the civil societies were able to achieve this. So their impact is enormous. We cannot do without them, and they must be encouraged.
The advocacy efforts of civil society organizations in Nigeria have been instrumental in driving positive change, fostering inclusivity, and promoting social justice. These organizations have tirelessly championed a wide range of causes, from human rights and gender equality to education, healthcare, and youth participation. Through their dedication and unwavering commitment, CSOs have been catalysts for progress in Nigeria, contributing significantly to the country's development.
Echo that voice until those in power will hear us. Not only will they hear us, but do what we want.
CSOs in Nigeria have worked tirelessly to hold government entities accountable for their actions, ensuring transparency and accountability in various sectors.
Earlier of the forthcoming general elections,
The advocacy efforts have played a pivotal role in shaping policies, influencing legislative reforms, and amplifying the voices of marginalized and vulnerable communities. The impact of CSOs in Nigeria extends beyond borders, inspiring other nations to adopt similar strategies in their quest for a more just, equitable, and democratic society. These organizations have consistently demonstrated that civic engagement and grassroots advocacy are potent tools for driving change and shaping the future. As PLAC, with support from USAID Scale, acknowledges the remarkable work of CSOs in Nigeria, they also recognize their ongoing journey. The challenges they face, including funding constraints, political pressures, and the evolving needs of society, demand continued resilience and innovation. In this regard, it is crucial for all stakeholders, including the government, private sector, and individuals, to support and collaborate with CSOs in their tireless pursuit of a better Nigeria for all.
The objectives of the operators in government and the civil society is the same, that let there be improvement in the life of citizens. CSOs will do a lot in being objective and it will abuse the mind for whom they are observing, they are monitoring as is being truthful and corrective. So I see civil society getting stronger. Rather than shrinking space for the operations, we expand space for operations. And we believe that we expand that space, being that they are objective, that they eliminate those 2-3 bad eggs I mentioned out of 10, and then the sky is the limit in that civil society operations. And I think by the time our leaders get to know that, yes, and believe that, yes, something is coming out good out of this, good advice, good criticism, constructive criticism, I think civil society will be topping the lead.
I know civil societies are meant to criticize, It's, when you have a well-constructed, line for your criticism, it will be well heard. But you see, we find out that people utilize the civil societies to attack other people. So I would ask them to desist from those kind of activities. They should not be buyable. They use you to bring down a system. They use you to carry out negatives based on personal interests. That dents the image of civil societies. Going forward, I hope this 10th Assembly, especially this committee, will be able to change that narrative to make the civil society understand that we are their friends and to work very closely with them. We're not going to tell them to not criticize us, because we need you to also watch us, and when we are going astray, to pull us back on track, But the main thing is, they need to desist from being, sponsored to bring down the National Assembly. I think that's why the National Assembly members, they run away from them. You see a boogeyman, you run.
In the spirit of unity, progress, and shared values, PLAC and USAID Scale salute the dedication of CSOs in Nigeria and encourage a collective commitment to working hand in hand for a brighter future. Together, CSOs can build a more inclusive, equitable, and prosperous Nigeria, where the rights and aspirations of all citizens are upheld and celebrated.